Hey, happy afternoon. I'm going to go over some of our questions here from Flipgrid. A lot of you had some pretty good questions related to what we talked about yesterday. We're going to kind of start class, if you will, like we normally would, where we can kind of go over questions and thoughts. So let's get to it. First, let's look at the Masada. I have some good questions there. In the other class, someone asked, where is the Masada? And one big answer to that, it's in Israel. Also, it's by the Dead Sea. Someone asked how large was the Masada. So if you remember that video yesterday, the drone flying over it, it's pretty big. I'd say the top of the Masada itself, like the surface where it was, is our school could probably fit up there pretty easily. Probably not like the fields, but like the area all around the school could fit up there, and it's large. Someone was asking about when did they make that all out of? So if you saw in that video too, there's tons of stones and rocks everywhere, so they could build stone walls around that fortress. Probably very early on when it was first built, it's probably made out of like mud, but as time passes, they could use stone, and that would be even stronger. Speaking of which, a fortress. How does it work? How long do they last? Really, this one's gonna last probably over thousands of years. That being said, it's not the original like walls and the original buildings. As different empires come through, they're going to rebuild it and make it stronger and better. And fortresses are kind of like modern military bases. There's soldiers stationed there who guard, patrol, look and see if there's enemy armies coming. So even then, there'd be soldiers there, yeah. Typically, as they said there, the place could withstand like a siege. So soldiers who lived up on that mountain they'll have food and water to last like 6 months if they couldn't leave, if they're under attack. Another question around the Masada from yesterday, and we kind of will look at it some more today. The suicide piece. Why would they kill themselves? Basically, the biggest answer to that is that they're going to learn how the Romans are very, very brutal to those who don't follow their lead or do what they say to do. If you look at Jesus, for example, and how he was crucified, as I said a couple weeks back, the Romans would crucify criminals and people they wanted to make examples of. So these Maccabees knew that their fate, most of them, especially the leaders, would have been crucified and slowly died on a cross, which is a really bad death. And those who survived knew they would be sold into slavery for the rest of their life. And to be a life of a slave in Rome wasn't really good. And you could be sent to really bad places, like a mine where you will probably die in slavery. If you were one of the better fighters of the Maccabees, you'd probably be sent to the arenas to fight to the death in a gladiator fight. So, and again, you may be a really good warrior. You could become successful. More than likely than not, you would be killed by professional gladiators, which also not a great death to have. Moving on, someone was asking about like Syria. They said the starters off, the Maccabees. You know, there's a priest who started it, Mr. Maccabee, if you will. Was he the only priest? Probably not. There was probably some others, but a way you can also look at it is there were probably plenty of other priests who didn't support revolting and fighting back like they did. So obviously not every single person agreed with them and supported them, but there will be some, yeah. Speaking of which, why does peace not last long? Well, when you look at world history, wars are always started even today based off of what people want to take stuff from others. They want money and wealth and power and land. Also, if someone's different, whether it's how they look, how they speak, or their religion, it scares people. The natural reaction of hate is fear. You're afraid of what you don't understand. And that's also what's going to kind of drive some war. And were people mad when they were conquered by Syria? I don't know if they'd be mad right away. Most people don't want to be ruled by someone who's different. So that's probably a good answer. But once the Syrians started forcing their Greek culture and religion on them, that probably did upset people, yeah. And that's what led to our Maccabee rebellion, right? Also, when we talk about Rome, when we look at how long did Rome rule Judah, that's a good question. Kind of like with the Masada, it's in Judah. The Romans technically would rule over Judah until about probably about the, like 500, 600 AD is how long the Romans will rule, because technically Rome's going to fall before then, but the Byzantine Empire, Eastern Roman Empire, will rule over this part of the world, and slowly the Islamic empires are going to rise up and take it over. So, and were Romans nice to Jewish people, and why would they enslave them? Firstly, at first, for Rome, anyone they conquered and took over, they were kind of like the Persians, and we'll talk about this more when we get to Rome. Anytime you were taken over by the Romans, depending who you were, you basically were treated pretty well. Romans had a superiority complex. They thought they were better than everyone else. But when you got conquered by the Romans, you only had to do three things, really. One, follow their laws. Two, send some people to fight their armies. Usually that's men and boys. And three, pay taxes. And you'd be protected by Rome. That was your deal. The Jewish people wanted their own kingdom and didn't want to do that. Also, if you think of our faith, they also believed in like another kingdom of God. So that probably didn't sit too well with the Romans. The Romans typically wanted you to respect their gods, and they would be fine with you. And the Jewish people, much like Christians, probably didn't really want to worship Roman gods. So that's going to be some issue too. And then why would they enslave the Jews? That wasn't just the Jews who got enslaved. The Romans, anyone who they conquered and anyone who resisted their rule, who fought against them, had rebellions, typically would be enslaved. Anyone who was conquered by Rome, who they didn't see as like equals, like your barbarians, typically were enslaved by the Romans. So yeah, those are the big questions to start us off. Nice questions on our 3, 2, 1s yesterday. Next, you will see down below on Google Classroom, I got your notes there for you to watch. You're going to write that in your 3-subject notebook. I don't have a thing printed off for you today, but that's okay. And tomorrow, we're going to start a project to end this chapter. And we're going to be making a timeline over our Hebrew kingdoms. I'll give more details on that tomorrow. And I will see you then tomorrow.